Hey, what's happening, beautiful people? Trumpeter Bobby Spellman here. And over the last little while, I've sensed a lot of confusion about the nature of tongue arch and its role in changing the pitch of the trumpet. Now, there's some controversy surrounding this whole process, and I covered that in my video on the physics of the trumpet. But today, I just wanted to go over a certain way that I think about using tongue arch and maybe try to give an alternative explanation of what you should be trying to accomplish when using it in order to make it easier to play in the upper register. So, without further ado, we're going to jump into this on this exciting episode of Trumpet with Bob. Alright, so I have personally found the use of the position of my tongue in changing registers on the trumpet to be an extremely useful approach to moving around the range of the instrument. I've also found that countless of my students have found the same thing, which is that in thinking about the position of your tongue in terms of, as one of the factors that you're using in order to be able to move the notes from low up into the upper register has been an extremely useful tool as they get used to playing the trumpet. So, the one thing is that there's a lot of confusion around the nature of tongue arch, and I think different people come to it in a different way. So I wanted to give a little bit of a more in-depth explanation as to what you want to be looking for, so that it might be able to make your life a little bit easier. One thing that I want to mention before we dive in here is that there are a lot of people who intuit this without having to think so specifically about the position of their tongues, and at times overthinking the theory of where your tongue wants to be can actually be a detriment more than a help in your playing. So what you don't want to do is get yourself thinking about these things so much that you are no longer playing in a natural way and you are causing yourself more trouble than it's worth. So if you already are intuiting this, this may not be super helpful. But if you're trying to figure it out, I'm hoping that this will lend a little bit more insight into the way to think about it. The other thing I wanted to start off by saying is one thing that I think creates some confusion around the tongue arch concept is the very name tongue arch. Now, when I was a kid and I was learning how to play the trumpet, I didn't hear it referred to as tongue arch. We would typically just talk about the vowels that you're using, ta versus t. So in case you have no idea what I'm talking about at all, and you're just wading through the confusion here, what I mean by tongue arch is the position of your tongue moving from ah, where your tongue is low in your mouth, to E, where your tongue is higher in your mouth. Where the lower your tongue is, you're going to get a lower note. Whereas the higher the position of your tongue is, that's going to aid, obviously in tandem with your air, in being able to produce the higher notes. It's the difference between E and aw. All right, you probably already knew that, so now we're going to dive into the specifics of it. Now, when I'm talking about the challenge of the term tongue arch, I think the problem that people run into is they think that they're just moving one position of their tongues. So the issue is, if you're thinking, all right, I'm going to arch my tongue in the middle, say this is your tongue. If you're thinking, all right, let's arch up here, but keep the front down, or arch in the middle, but keep the back and the front down, or any number of other things, I think what you can end up doing is constricting your airstream so much that you're not able to get the air out of your head and get a nice sound. Especially if you're thinking about the very back of your tongue where you have the ka or the ga sound. If you're bringing that up and reducing the space through which the air can move, ga, 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 all you're doing is creating a detriment to your own playing. It's just reducing the air, but you need that airstream to be moving quickly through your head, so you want to be as efficient as possible. Instead, the goal of the whole tongue arch concept, if we're going to call it that, is to just focus that airstream by restricting the space through which that air can move in your mouth. So I think it's most helpful for people to think of it as being ah versus E. And if you just do that in your mouth, ah, ee, you can feel your tongue moving around in your head. But as I covered in my Physics of the Trumpet episode, it's really not about one part of your tongue being up, but your entire oral cavity has to be, let's say, constricted in a certain way, all about at the same level. It's not really about one part being constricted and the others being open. It's about reducing the space in the entire oral cavity that air can move. Now, let me describe that in a slightly different way. if I'm playing low notes, even though my mouth is going to be in the exact same position here, I'm thinking about keeping my tongue down in my head and keeping my mouth open as possible. Now, without moving this part of my mouth, because you're going to need to be able to move from the low register into the upper register without having to move the mouthpiece on your face or without having to change your embouchure, this all wants to remain approximately the same. You're moving from your tongue is down here, where you're getting more space in your mouth, to bringing your tongue up, E. Now, I'm keeping my mouth in here, the same more or less, but the space through which the air can move becomes reduced. Because I'm moving not only my tongue up in my head, but everything in there is creating a very focused airstream in the front of my head. E-aw, aw, e-aw, e. Now, while this is happening, you're also obviously have to be thinking about your air support, and you got to be thinking about what's happening in your orbicularis oris muscles and all this other stuff. And a lot of things are going, you do the exercises in order to be able to do this intuitively. However, what we're talking about here is just isolating that tongue approach and what we talk about as the tongue arch. So rather than thinking where you're reducing the way that the air can move through your face, all you're trying to do is just make that airstream a focused laser that's going to go through your aperture and into the trumpet. All right, so once again, if I'm playing like this, I'm thinking, this is going to be some low notes. Then as I get up in the upper register, I'm going to bring my tongue up in my head and reduce the space in my mouth in order to make everything very small and very precise. So if I was going to talk like this, it would be very odd. But this is the sound that you would get because I'm reducing the space in my mouth through which the air moves. Now I'll show you a little graphic. Ready? Boop! This is what it looks like when French hornist Sarah Willis plays a high note in an MRI machine. You'll notice that it's not so much that one part of the tongue is arched, but rather that the entire tongue is moving up in such a way that you have basically a uniform diameter to that airstream, more or less. That's a kind of an odd way to put it, but it's just the principle that you're bringing your entire tongue up in your head, you're engaging your muscles in here, and you're making sure that everything is as laser focused as possible. So once again, it's not about moving just one part of your tongue up or restricting any kind of the airflow. The airflow needs to remain the same. It's just about reducing the space in your face so that you can get that focused air. And you can hear that also if hold on, let me see if I can do this with my microphone here. You can hear it if I'm just blowing the air. I'm not going to move my aperture. I'm not going to move anything else. You'll just hear the difference in pitch if I'm just moving my tongue up in my head. And it goes like this. So even before my lips start vibrating or I make any sound on the trumpet, I'm controlling that air, the shape of that airstream with the position of the inside of my mouth. And by just focusing on my air and the position of my tongue in my head, it makes it very easy for me to be able to move around the whole register of the trumpet without having to change my embouchure or change the way that I'm playing the trumpet in any way when I'm shifting registers. All right, gang, well, I hope that helps as a little descriptor for one way to think about tongue arch. It's more than just arching your tongue. It's really about the position of the entire inside of your mouth. That also includes, by the way, as a quick addendum, your cheek muscles. That's one of the reasons that you don't want to puff your cheeks out while you're playing, because you want to have control over the shape of the inside of your mouth. And part of that is keeping your cheeks engaged, your cheek muscles engaged. Part of it's bringing your tongue up in your head, et cetera, et cetera. And obviously, as I've said many times, almost to a fault, everyone's built differently. So there may be some people that rely much less on tongue position than others. Everybody's got their own mouths. Everybody's got their own tongues and teeth. So you may find that you have a different approach that works for you. So there's no one right way, but there are a lot of useful exercises that you can do and techniques that you can try out that will make playing trumpet a little bit easier and a little bit more fun. All right, gang. If you like this video, give us a like, subscribe to the channel. You can find some videos on transcriptions and outtakes and various other fun things on our Patreon page. You can follow me on all the social medias and whatnot. And come back next week for another exciting video on playing the trumpet and jazz and music theory and things of any kind of nature, musical nature. All right, gang, hope you had a wonderful time. Have a wonderful time practicing. We'll catch you in the next one. See ya. Trumpet with Bob. All right, friends, thanks so much for checking out this video. We hope it helps in your quest for the majesty of musical self-expression. If you like what we're doing here, you can give this video a like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this one. And if you'd like to support the creation of new videos like this, you can become a subscriber on our Patreon page at patreon.com/Ridgewood School of Music. There, subscribers will have access to more in-depth follow-up videos, as well as solo transcriptions, various musical exercises, and all kinds of fun stuff. If you'd like to follow me on my musical adventures, you can find me on Instagram at Bob Spellman, and you can follow the Ridgewood School of Music's other social media pages by following the links in the description below. The Ridgewood School of Music is currently accepting new students online or in person in the New York City area. If you're interested in lessons, you can find us at www.ridgewoodschoolofmusic.com, or you can send us an email at ridgewoodschoolofmusic@gmail.com, and we can set you up with a great teacher for the instrument and the style of music that you're interested in studying. All right, gang, well, have a wonderful time practicing, and we'll catch you on the next one. See ya.